Hey everyone, and welcome to Promote Hope Podcast, Episode 10 Healthy Boundaries. Today I have a special guest with me. We are on via Zoom due to COVID restrictions, but I just think it's awesome to have another outlet and a way to still connect and reach with people, even though, we can't be together. There's still this opportunity. So we are on a Zoom call. And if you want to know more about Zoom, let me know so that you can. I use Zoom to connect with my family, connect with friends. I use it for work. So if you are interested in knowing how you can have Zoom a part of your life to connect with people during this pandemic, during this COVID time, just let me know. This is Lucretia Robertson.
Hey.
Lucretia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh gosh. People always ask me that question. I don't even know what to share. Wow. I don't really know too much what I would share. I think what I would offer is that I'm married, which I think is an important thing to note when we talk about boundaries, right? So I'm in a long-term relationship. I have kids. So again, an important thing to note when you talk about setting boundaries, because even there it's very important to have. But I am an aspiring business owner. This year, I'm hoping to launch a couple of courses on my website, which is just about ready to go up, lucretiarobertson.com. And the courses are really geared towards women because that is my heart, empowering women to be leaders, either in their home or in their business, on the job or whatever that might be, but to really be leaders in a way where they can have impact and they can also be healthy. They can feel good about who they are and not have to compromise themselves. So that's pretty much the gist for me. My heart is women, is mentoring and hopefully coaching women, because I didn't have that. And coaching them even on this subject, like boundaries. How do we exercise boundaries wherever we are in a good, positive, healthy way? It doesn't have to be, negative and disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
That's me.
So, welcome to our podcast. Before I was saying that until I met you or until I had that seminar with you, I didn't know that healthy boundaries was even a real thing. Like I know people we talk about boundaries, but not as far as in our life and making boundaries a part of our daily routine. And you talk about it so strongly. And my first question is, what got you into healthy boundaries and knowing that and learning that?
I think probably the biggest reason why I got into I was really curious about boundaries, or really
Mhm.
became attracted to that subject, was because I was not raised with an understanding of boundaries. That's just not how my folks, they raised me or raised my siblings. That idea of boundaries was kind of foreign.
Mhm.
And most often when you talk about boundaries with people who don't understand boundaries, they hear that as a no. So boundaries is like, you're my child, you're not going to tell me no. And so that's
Mhm.
how it was always interpreted. So
Mhm.
that was one big reason why I got into boundaries. Not having boundaries meant that my feelings was hurt all the time about stuff.
Mhm.
I wasn't communicating what I really needed. So I didn't tell you that I didn't want to do something. I wanted you to guess that I didn't want to do something. And then when I did something that I didn't want to do, now I'm feeling, upset or bitter, or I'm feeling used because I didn't take the time to say, that's not really something that I want to do, or I don't really like that. I'm not interested in that, or, whatever that might be. So that was a big thing, was always being in my feelings about it. I actually had a situation where my husband and I went on vacation many, many years ago, and he enjoys jazz music. He really likes jazz music, and I know that about him, right? So I made plans for us to go. We're on vacation someplace. I made plans for us to go listen to some jazz music, and we went. He had a good time. It's not my favoriteest thing to do, but we went and had a good time. Well, afterwards, either later that day or the next day, I was like, oh, we should go do this and this because this is something I wanted to do. And he was like, I don't want to do that. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't want to do that? Like, we're on vacation and I went to the jazz music for you, so you should do this for me. And his response was, no, you went to the jazz music for yourself. If you didn't want to go, you should have just said, I don't want to go. He goes, but I'm not doing whatever that is that you want to do. And my feelings was hurt. Like, I was offended. Like, how dare you not want to do what I want to do because I, took time out for you. But the lesson learned after that was, if I don't want to do something, I need to just say that and not endure things with the expectation that there's going to be a trade-off,
Yeah.
because that's not sincere, right? So that was a lesson for me, and those are the big reasons why I felt like boundaries was really important, because I was tired of my feelings being hurt, tired of being exhausted, tired of the story in my head that I'm being used and people are taking advantage of me. I need to just start saying no, not right now. So that was my reason.
Well, so you would say that learning boundaries comes from childhood. A lot of us don't even know about boundaries because, we're raised how we're raised. So, would you say that learning how to have healthy boundaries would come from learning that in your home, as me raising my kids? I can teach them how to have healthy boundaries, or is it something that we explore as we get older?
I think it's both. So, obviously as parents, we do begin to teach our children boundaries, right? Like, we teach them, no, you can't hit that person. That's an example of a boundary, because you don't get to just inflict pain on someone, right? So we teach things like that. No, you can't snatch their toys. So we start teaching boundaries when our kids are younger. But here's what I think happens is our kids get older and they start to express their thoughts, ideas, and feelings, and it rubs up against what we think is right.
Mhm.
And then we stop the conversation around boundaries. We might not use that word, but we don't dig deeper, because what our kids want to do is not what we want them to do. And so we push back on that. But we can definitely learn to create boundaries, as adults. We can definitely take the time to read. There's lots of information out there. Find someone who's pretty good at establishing uh, boundaries, or creating space for their own well-being, and talk to those people to kind of help us, like, how do you do that? How are you able to manage your time so well, and you have other commitments? So we could definitely learn that as adults. Yeah.
So you mentioned that there are books and resources that I can Google boundaries, healthy boundaries, and find a whole bunch of information regarding how to even have them.
Yeah, and my favorite book is Boundaries by Townsend and Cloud. They are the ones that introduced me to this idea that boundaries are healthy and they're normal, and they have nothing to do with being obedient. That sometimes the language that we're taught when we're younger is, we do things because we want to be obedient. But that book was life changing for me. It really changed how I saw my own health and my own relationships. So if anything, get that book.
That is amazing. My next question is, so when we did the seminar, we talked about boundaries with our spouses. But before I can even get there, how do I have boundaries with myself?
So here's what I would offer for people who are curious about whether or not they need to establish boundaries. If you find yourself exhausted because you're always helping someone, if you find yourself spinning these long stories in your head, or maybe with someone else, about people are taking advantage of you, if I tell this person no, they're going to be upset, I'm going to lose this relationship. If you find yourself, I would say, I use the word bitter, but maybe just feeling like you're doing things that you don't want to do. And that was my big thing, right? Is doing things that I don't want to do. Then it's time for you to really consider establishing boundaries. And it doesn't have to be a big deal, right? I can't spend, oops, sorry, that was my light so that you could see me. I can't spend a lot of time managing other people, but I can definitely manage myself. And so that's where I think everyone needs to start with a conversation, just having a conversation with yourself. Do I really need to establish boundaries, or do I need to strengthen my boundaries? I think that's where most people need to start. Did I answer your question? Girl, I got caught up into this.
Yes, and like I want to pull that word no because when I hear my husband say no, I get real, you know,
Mm,
real in my feelings about that word no. So that word no is a powerful word, and I think like again when we're being raised and we're saying no, 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 it it turns into a negative. But let's
mhm.
talk about the power of no because no could be a positive thing.
Yeah,
I think that a lot of us become people pleasers because we're afraid to say no. We're afraid of other people's reaction. We're afraid that if I say no, they're not going to like me anymore. But if you can't do it, you can't do it. And for me, on the other side, I would rather you tell me no than to give me low quality or to come
yes,
not really give me what I need. So I would rather
yeah,
you say no and me find another resource than,
yeah. When you first learn about boundaries, or at least when I first learned about boundaries, that's what I interpreted as no. Everything was going to be no. But over time, I learned that there's other ways to say no that doesn't feel so like rude and doesn't feel like you're being selfish or like you're being harsh. I mean, there are times you're just going to have to flat out say no. But there are also times when you can say, I have to think about that because I can't fit that into my schedule right now, maybe another time. Or that sounds very interesting. Right now, I have so much going on that I would rather hold off on that decision. Let's talk about it in a couple of months, right? So you don't always have to say no. But look, if you have a problem with someone saying no to you, then you are boundaryless and you need to work on that. Like, no is not a condemnation, it's not a judgment of you.
yes,
It's not saying that you are not worthy, that you are not enough, that you are not good enough. All it's saying is right now, based on what you need or are asking, the answer is no. Whether it's a job,
yeah,
whether it's a relationship, whatever it might be, no is not like it's not the end of it. You can always come back to it. But taking no, we have to learn how to accept a no because it's not going to always be our way. I have to tell my daughters that all the time. You have to get good with a no. You have to get good with the no. Because sometimes they are challenged with asking me things because they're like, well, you're going to say no and you're not going to die. I'm not taking your birthday away. It doesn't diminish your worth or who you are. It just means that, my response is no. So we got to get comfortable with that. But if we have a hard time accepting people's no's, then we need to do some internal work to say, what is it about the no that I've automatically interpreted as a rejection, right?
yes. And it's funny because when I did not say no, I got burned out quick. Like I'm too young to be talking about getting burned out. Like, you know what
Yes.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I got burnt out quick. Stressed quicker. Like my life felt like chaos, and all because I couldn't say no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
So
think that's common for a lot of women, though. I think women, we take on too much because we want to be superwoman. Now I'm superwoman whether I do a bunch of stuff or I'm managing one thing. But I think that's common for women. We want to do a lot. We want to please people. We want our life to be fairly perfect. We want our children to be happy. We want our husband to be pleased. We want the house to be clean. We want all that stuff. And so we're struggling with the no. We struggle with the no for ourselves. And then when somebody else tells us no, oh my gosh, it's like we break down. We break down, right? Because you don't care. Don't you see me doing all this stuff? You don't even care about me. You're just going to tell me no? Well, part of being an adult and part of having mature, healthy boundaries is that I have to accept your no, right? Um, yeah. So it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice to have those mature boundaries.
right, right. But I want so my next question, this is gonna tie into my next question, what you said, because I want to have a healthy life. And
Yes.
I feel like only way I can have a healthy life, well, not the only way, but having healthy boundaries will contribute to me having a healthy life because I won't get burned out quick because I can say no, or I can say, hey, can I come back to that and
Mhm.
still feel good about myself and still feel like I didn't let anyone down.
Mhm.
And my next question to you is, once I've embraced this healthy boundaries journey and trying to practice having these healthy boundaries, what are some positive aspects that's going to come from me having these healthy boundaries for myself? So what
Okay.
am I going to start seeing differently if I have boundaries?
Okay. So I'm going to try to answer that, but I need to back up a little bit because I want to make clear for people what boundaries are. So I have some notes for myself
Okay.
that I'll read from, but I think it'll help us to understand what does it look like when I have healthy boundaries. So the very first thing I will say is that boundaries are about setting priorities. So each of us have to individually, remember I said self-control, each of us have to individually decide what is a priority for my life, not my husband, not my kids, not other people. What is the priority, for my life? Now, obviously, if you're a leader, you're going to have to establish priorities for your business or for your team or for your group. But we're just talking about first starting with self. So boundaries are about priorities. Boundaries are at the very heart about distinguishing myself from other people. Like boundaries are a way for me to know this is me and this is not me, right? So that's really important to know. So people have to do the work to do like a self evaluation or do the introspection because we're not cookie cutters, and that's where like the idea of competition is not good for our healthy boundaries. As women, because we see people on social media and we want to be like them. But when we get caught up in that, we're forgetting that I'm not like that person. There's something unique about me, just like there's something unique about that other person. And having healthy boundaries helps us to like continue to reinforce that, right?
Yes.
So we talked about the ways in which we know we don't have healthy boundaries. So if you're feeling like you feel guilty when you ask for what you want, that's kind of an indication that maybe I need to go back and establish what are my priorities. You don't feel as if you can say no. Some of us have relationships like that, where if you say no, it's a long conversation. They want an explanation. They want to convince you. They want to negotiate. Well, my answer was basically no, right? So respect that. So that's usually a sign that, okay, my boundaries are not set or they're not clear. I haven't explained that. You feel responsible for someone else's happiness. That is so real for people pleasers. That is so real for people pleasers that if the other person isn't happy, then I feel responsible for that. It's one thing to be empathetic, right? I'm mourning with you. I'm crying with you. But it's another thing to be like, something I said or did made somebody unhappy. None of us have control of the other people's emotions. So as a side note, when people say, well, you made me mad, that's actually not true. You chose to be upset. You
Mhm.
chose to be triggered by what somebody said. You chose to take whatever they said and made it about you, because we all have different opinions. So when people say, oh, you made me upset, that's actually not true. I may not have liked what you said. I may not like what you did, but me being upset or angry is a personal choice that maybe I went with an emotion and I stayed there instead of processing it and saying, okay, difference of opinion. I
Right.
might not agree,
Right.
but I get it.
Right.
So, and then the other way that we know that we really need to establish boundaries or work on our boundaries is you don't feel responsible for your own feelings. So that's something what I just said. So when I say that someone makes me do something or makes me feel something, that's a boundary issue because no one can make me anything.
Mhm.
I'm the one that has control over those emotions. So when we start having healthy boundaries, this is what it looks like.
Mhm.
It looks like I feel good about my decisions. I'm not blaming other people because I did something and because of something they did or did not do, I'm not as successful,
Mhm.
right? So I'm moving away from blaming other people. I'm moving away from feeling guilty about other people's decisions. Let me tell you, as a mom, I think we all have been there. You ain't there yet because yours is babies. Wait till they become teenagers. As
Mhm.
a mom, we struggle with guilt. We struggle with, did my kids make the right decision? Am I parenting well? What did I do wrong or right when they were 3, 4, or 5 in their formative years?
Mhm.
So moms, we struggle with guilt all the time, all the time. But if you have a firm belief in practicing and having healthy boundaries, you
Mhm.
will have those momentary lapses where you feel guilty, but you will come to a point where it's like, my kids have got to make their own decisions. I'm
Mhm.
not saying unhealthy decisions. I'm not saying harming themselves, but when they're younger and they want to go out and their clothes is just not matching, just completely not matching. And that used to like irritate me. That doesn't match. I had to let that go. I'm allowing you to exercise your ability to make a decision and to practice your boundaries. I got to let that go. I have to, right? Even when shoes are on the wrong foot, I know some moms that would drive them insane. Look, if they're able to walk and it's not bothering them, we have to build that in our children
Right.
so that eventually they get to a place where they can make a decision and they're not going to feel bad or be criticized or judged
Mhm.
because their shoes are on the wrong feet, right? Or they're wearing two different socks. So
Mhm.
I think when we have healthy boundaries, there's less stress around making a decision. Before my boundaries were pretty set, I'm still working on them. I would stress so much making a decision. Like I'd be anxious. I have to talk to 4 or 5 different people about it. That should not be. I should be able to say, that's not something I want to do and I'm cool with it. It should be something where I've made a decision and even after conversation and I could see the other side, uh, you know, I'm pretty good with the decision I made. But here's the deal about boundaries. Cloud and Townsend talks about this. Boundaries are not a wall. It's more like a fence with a gate, like a door, right? We have to be flexible. So if I've had conversation with someone and I change my mind, I should be able to change my mind and again, not feel any guilt.
Yeah.
So those are some of the ways in which we have healthy boundaries. I think we know that we have healthy boundaries when um, our relationships, like the trust level goes up, when I feel confident that I can tell you exactly how I feel and
Mhm.
it doesn't become an issue. You're not internalizing it. You made me. I have healthy boundaries. When we can talk about hard things and it doesn't like get in the way of our relationship. So, I mean, I have failed at this many times. I probably will, but I'm still going to continue working on developing healthy and mature boundaries for myself. Because I think as women, and I'm going to say this as Black women, we have to be the example of that to other people. We have to be, because this is how we help each other avoid the stress and anxiety that leads to high blood pressure and heart attacks and failed relationships because we didn't learn how to just say, this is me, that's you, and I completely respect that.
And when we have that conversation with ourselves, you talked about having a conversation with yourself and first talking to the man in the mirror, you know, how can I get to that place where I'm ready to face myself? How can is it something inside of me? A little backstory is sometimes when I make decisions, I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach. And the feeling is, okay, did I do something right? Okay, did I do something wrong? Did I offend somebody? Because my goal in life is not to hurt anyone.
Hmm.
I don't want to hurt anyone by my choices. I'm so focused on other people that I'm afraid to make a choice.
Hmm.
Another thing is I feel like we want to make choices that's going to be awesome at hand and never fail. So we want to make these good choices and we want to make people feel comfortable and happy around us. So then it puts us in a place where I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm bubbling over, I'm having hot moments like I don't know what to do. I'm sweating because I'm thinking about everybody else but myself.
Yeah.
And
Well, I will say this. I think you should have a gut feeling, like not a gut feeling. There should be something in your gut because we shouldn't be making decisions without thinking through the consequences. So I'm not saying that boundaries keeps us from having any type of emotional or physical response, because every decision I make results in another decision and another decision. These are choices that turn into consequences. So I think we should all always have like a feeling. There should be something in me that says, have I thought this through, right? That's one thing. But if I'm just like you said, like you were mentioning, if I'm just stressed and I'm anxious, and every time I have to make this decision or deal with this person or go down this route, and I start to feel sick or I start to really doubt myself, then I think that's the time to start asking, okay, what is it about this decision or about what I'm about to say is so uncomfortable and awkward for me? One of the things I recognize for myself, and I think there are a lot of women that do this, is we start creating a story in our mind about um, what the other person is um, doing. Like, what is going to be their reaction? Oh, okay. So if I say
Yes,
this person's going to say that. Then the next thing you know, we're going to be in fight, and then they're not going to be talking to me anymore.
yes,
You know what? I'm not going to do it. We don't need to go down that road. We don't need to go down that road. When I have healthy boundaries, I'm willing to make some decisions and deal with the consequences. But obviously, prior to making those decisions, I'm doing a gut check. I got to do that. Man, I just feel so, this decision, I just got to make
right.
sure when I make this decision, it's the best decision to make. Right. So, yeah. Um,
Well, does
yeah.
boundaries change? My next question is, will my boundaries change? So right now my boundaries are this, but now I've experienced life, I've had kids, because I feel like I'm a different person. My season is changing. So I just came from one season, now I'm in another season. Okay. First I was college student, I was in that season. Then I was in a new wife, I was in that season. And now I'm a mom, I was in that season. So does my boundaries, do I need to check my boundaries, because you said it's a prioritizing? So do I
Yeah.
need to come back every so often and like revamp my boundaries, because I feel like I can get stuck again, if I'm always changing. I am always changing. One moment I'm here, next minute I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the next level. I'm a climber, I'm a doer. And so does that mean my boundaries change, or am I constantly trying to keep up with the same boundaries that I've already made for myself?
Yeah. But so boundaries are adjustable, right? So we talked about them being a gate, and they have a way in and out. So they're always adjustable. You're always going to expand them. You're always going to contract them. So boundaries are always adjustable. I don't know that as we mature or as our seasons change, we always need to do like a conscious reevaluation, because what I have experienced is, once I got comfortable establishing boundaries, generally speaking, and I used my life as a way to model it. Once I got comfortable with that, even as seasons change, I'm comfortable enough to say, this doesn't fit. I'm just going to establish a boundary around here, because boundaries are really setting the parameters. And because the parameters are always adjusting and changing, and we are people who adapt, humans are people who adapt. If we're relatively healthy, we're people who adapt. I don't know that once we get practice, we need to always come back and do a prioritization and self check. It starts to come naturally. So that's the good thing about once we establish boundaries and we become a bit more mature in setting those, then it starts to come naturally. Because, like, for example, we use our words to set boundaries, right? So we use our words to set expectations and to set priorities. Well, if we adapt ourselves and learn new language, well, that language goes with us. So I don't know that we're going to always need to do that work. Every once in a while, you may have to go back and say, I'm like, my time management is out of control. What's really going on? Oh, okay, I need to go back and set a boundary. And the boundary is going to be around creating a schedule, making sure I don't take calls during certain times. I stay off of social media during certain times. So those are different ways that we can adapt. It doesn't always have to be um, doing some deep digging, you know?
My next question is, how do I practice? So when a situation comes and between me and Hap, can I use that as an opportunity to practice, or can I, like, what are some ways that I can be practicing putting my boundaries into into play?
hmm I always recommend people start working on their boundaries in a safe space. So obviously, Hap is a safe person for you, just like my husband is a safe person for me. So I always suggest starting there to establish healthy boundaries. The way my husband helped me many, many years ago was first he was sick and tired of me complaining and crying and being upset and being in my feelings over stuff. And he was like, this is something that you are going to have to do some work on because you're not going to always get your way. People are going to say things that you find, offensive or inappropriate. What are you going to do about that? So how he helped me was he helped by committing to accept my boundary setting, because you can set boundaries in your relationship, right? Um, so I'm gonna tell you a personal story. My husband used to work swing, I think it was swing. And so he'd get home like around 11-ish, midnight, something like that. And I was already in the bed. But then you want to come and have fellowship. We're not having fellowship at midnight. You're gonna have to talk to me tomorrow. And so part of setting that boundary was saying, I love you, and this is not about me not being attracted to you, but at midnight, I am tired. Like, I'm tired. I got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I need my sleep. We're going to have to negotiate something. So he was willing to commit to, okay, let's find a better time, what works for both of us. And that's how he helped me to practice, setting my boundaries. He reinforced it by, people will do things, and we have family members that will do this to us, right? They come in and ask you, hey, we're coming into town. Can we stay at your house? And you say, well, no, our house is full. You're going to have to find a hotel. Then they go to your spouse. Because what they want is they want your spouse to say something different. Well, how my husband would support me and how you can do this for each other is you have that pre-conversation, you set up a plan and a strategy. So when they come and ask your spouse is like, either has an answer no, or says, have you talked to Ivory? Okay, well, whatever she said, because, it's
Amen.
her decision. You know what I'm saying?
We're going to
That's
work
how we
on that.
practice it.
We're definitely
Surround yourself. You said you're going to what?
I'm definitely going to do that one. I'll take that one.
You have to surround yourself with people who are healthy boundary setters. You have to. Part of that is your support system is your spouse. If you have people in your family, if you have friends who you're like, look, I need some practice. So help me to set this up ahead of time, because when we go into this conversation, she gonna come at me like this. I need you to be on the other side, like, wait a minute, let Ivory finish talking, whatever that might be.
And what's a good way to talk to our spouse or our safe place? Because it may not be a spouse, it could be a parent or whatever the case may be. But what's a good way to say, hey, I'm practicing my boundaries, or I'm working on me, or what's a good way to share that information with them so that they can be on board, even if they're not even working on it themselves?
Yeah. One of the ways I did that so that I could get people on my team was I was very clear about what I was working on by being transparent about what I was struggling with, right? So I did not make it about other people. I was very clear that, I'm tired of my feelings being hurt. I'm tired of always feeling offended because I didn't get what I want. And I recognize that that's not a mature place to be. I'm really working on boundaries. This is what it looks like. Can you help me? This is how I need you to help me. I need you to allow me to have some flexibility to say, no, not right now. And I need you to, I don't really want to have a conversation with you about it. Is that cool? I don't always want to have to explain myself. Is that cool? I mean, I set up basic boundary with my mom. My mom used to like to call like late at night. Well, I can't be on the phone late at night because I need my rest. I'm one of those people. I need to get my 8 hours of sleep. And so I did two things. I had the conversation with her that I was like, Mom, you unless it's an emergency, like you really cannot call after 9:30, 10 o'clock, because I am like exhausted in the morning. But then the other thing is I did was I took my handy dandy phone and I set my settings so that my phone didn't ring after 9:30. So like there's different things that you have to do for yourself to reinforce what you're trying to create. But you have to be self-aware enough to admit that I'm not where I need to be. You got to be transparent about your intentions. You might have to do some education and then ask for their support, in that way. And if they don't support you, that's okay. That is okay. As part of setting boundaries, I'm responsible for me. They're not responsible for me. But you make it clear. You know what? Every time we get together, you always want to run this person down. I don't want to have that conversation. So if you start running this person down, or you start going down that road, or you start complaining about something, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna give you 2 chances, and then I'm gonna leave.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then
I
you
have to
stick to
follow
that.
through.
You gotta follow through.
Okay.
You gotta
And
follow
so
through.
that's my last question. Well, before I share my last question, Lucretia agreed to do a part 2 for her to teach us how to have healthy boundaries with other people. So first we start with ourselves, and then we reach out to other people and have those healthy boundaries. I have a hard time with having friends and friendships, but I think it's because my root is I don't set boundaries. I
Yeah.
don't set boundaries, and I don't have boundaries for myself. I have expectations in them. I feel responsible for them. I think they should be responsible for me. So I have this whole mindset of what this relationship is about to look like. And then when it doesn't go my way, I'm in a hole, I'm stressed, I'm frustrated, and I'm no longer like this person.
Yeah.
So I want to discuss that on a part 2. But my last question today is, when you were mentioning having boundaries and people not liking your boundaries, if people decide to walk away because you set a boundary, or if I lose friends because I'm setting a boundary and saying, hey, I don't want to talk about that person, but they say, oh, you're shady, or that's not fair, or they want to walk away, or they can't respect my boundaries, how do I handle that? And is that something that's going to happen in my journey to having more healthy boundaries for myself?
Well, sadly, for sure, you're gonna lose people, because some people really are okay with having boundaryless relationships. They're okay with trampling all over your boundaries. They don't establish boundaries for themselves. Those people, I find, are always living in chaos. There's always something going on. There's always some drama in their life because they refuse to kind of, draw the line and say, this is it. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not going to allow this to be in my life. So I will first forewarn you that if anybody listening or anybody watching plans to start setting boundaries, expect that some people will be turned off. And it goes back to what I said earlier. If people do not have healthy boundaries, they will see your actions as being an assault on them. So, why are you doing this to me? What am I doing wrong? Boundaries are not about the other person. They never are. They're always about me. So if we've done the job of educating people about what we're trying to establish in our lives, what we're trying to create, it's about it's always about me, and they understand that and they respect that. A great example of a boundary, 2 great examples of a boundary that most people should respect, unless they're like narcissistic or they're an abuser, is a lock on your front door. That's a boundary. No one should be offended or take personally that everyone doesn't have a key to my front door. You don't pay rent here, you don't live here, I desire safety. So boundaries are that, quite honestly. They are a key to my front door, and I should be the one to decide who gets the key and whether or not I share it, that type of thing. Another type of boundary is, I'm working on my weight, and so I'm watching what I eat and I'm exercising. Who gets to decide you shouldn't exercise, you shouldn't eat that, or you look fine? I have to make that decision. My skin, my body is a boundary. So I think those are great ways to explain to people, here's what I'm trying to create. And if you see it the same way, you'll be able to respect that. But any decision you make, always count the costs, always measure and assess and decide what is at stake.
Yes.
Obviously, if you're in an abusive relationship, there's nothing to measure, there's nothing to consider. You need to get out of that abusive relationship, right? That is clearly a boundaryless relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in a relationship where, maybe it's a parent, I practiced setting boundaries with my mom. They were baby steps. They weren't exactly where I wanted them to be. But that was because it was my mom. Like, what am I can't like cut my mom off completely. Again, unless you're being abused. That's something totally different. But I couldn't just cut her off completely. So I set boundaries on certain things. In
Mhm.
other areas, I had to just kind of let it be what it was.
Mhm.
So we have to do evaluate and do an assessment. We have to measure what is at stake if I don't set the boundary, and what is at stake if I do, and expect that some people will not be pleased, they will not understand, they will criticize, they will be mad, they will argue, they will test, resist, and push back on your boundaries all the time. But once you get established,
Right.
just know it's the key to my front door. You will never get it. You will never get that key, and I am okay with that.
Mhm. That's amazing. And I work at boundaries. I'm baby steps. I'm at the beginning of my boundaries. But I like the way that I feel that freedom I'm feeling from just not having to do it.
Yeah.
If I don't want to do it, or I'm so afraid of these people who are authorities in my life standing up to them and just saying, no, thank you, not today. We're raised to learn you have respect for people in authority, right?
Yes.
But like you said earlier, I can still have respect. Saying no, I can still say it respectfully and say, I don't want to do that right now.
Yes.
I don't want to
Yes.
stuff your envelopes today. I don't
Yes.
want to take over, say if there's a family business or something inherited and I don't want it.
Yeah.
I feel like I should
Exactly.
be okay to not have it.
It is okay. And it's also okay, because I got to take your example a little further. It's also okay if someone says no to you and they're disrespectful, you find them disrespectful and they're saying no to you, you don't have to internalize that. The disrespect is on them.
I
I mean, now
internalize everything.
we go so far, right? If we will only allow people to go so far. I would want women to address that. But sometimes we get so caught up in, oh, no, you didn't say that to me like that. You're not going to be disrespectful. You know what? The answer was no. They made it clear to you. We just walk away. Maintain your peace. Maintain your peace. That's what boundaries to me are. It's like, I'm going to have my peace. I'm prioritizing my peace over everything else. Over everything else.
Practice. And I haven't learned it. So I'm 30 years old. So now here I am, like, okay, ready to learn some boundaries. Like, it takes I've messed up so many relationships. I've messed up so many opportunities with my husband. And okay, I'm ready to take off with my boundaries. And now I have to like educate myself and learn, like you said.
I'm in the same place, and I've been married 20 something years. Ooh, I
Ooh, ooh.
can't remember. I've been married 20 something years, and I probably the first 7 to 10 years of my marriage, it could have been 100 times better had I just
Wow.
been very clear about my boundaries,
Right.
not been heavily influenced by my mom and swayed by what she said or what she did, not allowing other family members to, have a voice in what I was doing or
Wow.
to guilt me into doing something. Not allowing even my husband's immaturity to like impact me in a way where I wasn't truly being myself,
Mhm.
not prioritizing my peace. Like I was prioritizing everybody else's needs and pleasing them above my peace. Again, never to be disrespectful, but really just to be good and well with myself.
Right.
And I wasn't. The
Right.
first 10 years of my marriage, I was not
Mhm.
I was not in a good place. I was not mature at all.
Well, I thank you so much for taking the time to share. There's so much more questions. There's so much more, even for myself. And I know that there are a lot of women, and you mentioned earlier that you help women. So, can you share with us how someone could reach you if they have questions or if they want to talk to you or look to you to be a mentor in their life around boundaries? How can they reach you?
So my website is yet to be up. It would be lucretiarobertson.com. I'm on Facebook, Lucretia Robertson. I'd actually want people to find me on my page, Black Girl Working. but I'm on Facebook, people can message me or DM me. I'm on Instagram, again, Lucretia Robertson. It's actually the Lucretia Robertson.
I'll have it's posted below. So it's posted down below. So the
Yeah,
Lucretia Robertson.
yeah, on Instagram. And then so DM me that way, email me, DM me or message me through Facebook, but I'm accessible and I'm reachable. And one of the things I want for women is I want women to know that we can have, we can be well mentally, physically, and emotionally. It
Mhm.
takes work. You can't depend on other people to help you with that. That's a boundary thing, right? I'm responsible for myself. So it takes work. We have to be very honest with ourselves, brutally honest with ourselves, not not coming down on ourselves, but brutally honest with myself to say, you know, I got a bad attitude and there's something behind that, or I'm so exhausted all the time, or I'm tired of my feelings being hurt about things. What is that really about? Um, and when we are brutally honest with ourselves, that's the beginning of, okay, there's work to be done. Where do I start?
Okay. And easily trying to manipulate people to do what I want them to do, and trying to get my way all the time. Like, I'm learning that everything does not have to go my way, and that needs to be okay. It's not okay. Everything that does need to revolve with me. But no, I'm just kidding. But he has his own boundaries, and I didn't know
Yes.
that. I did not know that when
Yes.
we got married. I'm like, this is all me.
And we're not told that when we get married. We are not told that we can maintain boundaries in marriage. We're told the two becomes one, which means we're going to have one way of doing things and one idea. But who's the one idea that we're going to have?
Who wins?
Who wins, right? So even to this day, I struggle with, I want to be right.
Yes.
Like, I'll bring up something 5 times. I know my husband's like, if you don't stop bringing that up, because what's behind it is I want to be right. I want to win. The one idea that's going to win out today is mine.
It's
Um,
mine.
yeah. And so we are not taught that. And that whole respect thing, you're taught to respect people because they're older, because they're an authority, because they're a man, because they're your parent. We're taught to respect. And look, I have respect for people because they are human beings,
Yeah.
period.
Right.
Right. And my having a difference of opinion is not a disrespect. It's a difference of opinion. Let's call it what it is. So we got some work to do. We have some work to do. And then I won't go here, but fake news is messing it up for us. Social media is messing it up for us because we want to believe everything we see and we hear instead of making a decision for ourselves. So
And
yeah.
when you talked about that earlier, as ourself, we look at social media, we look at Instagram, we look at all this stuff, and then we desire their life and we get caught up in their life, and we're missing out on our own life.
Yeah.
Because that was me. I used to think, when I went into motherhood, I read every book. I looked at every Instagram mommy. I started going on mommy groups, mommy pages. When I became a military wife, I started reading all the military wife stuff. I watched Army Wives on Netflix. Like, okay, this is about to be me.
Wow.
Like, let me research this title, when only to get married to a military person and it not go that way, and become a mother and it not go that way, and it not look like that. Like, I remember seeing a woman breastfeeding in the forest. Well, nursing hurt, breastfeeding hurt. I was exhausted. I was up all night. I wasn't getting any milk. I was frustrated, and I was so scared to use formula because the world says that
Yes.
you have to breastfeed. You
Yeah.
breastfeeding your baby. And it was during that movement where everybody was upset because they wanted their breasts to be out. Like,
I remember that. I
so
remember that.
okay, so that was when I was having Jeremiah. So I'm like, okay, my breast needs to be out. I need to be nursing, and I need to be doing all of this to be in that world, to be doing it right, to be accepted. First of all, I'm modest. Second of all, I don't want nobody seeing my boob. Third of all, I want to cover up. Fourth of all, I hate nursing. So I want to pump only. And that was me, but I was compromising me in the way that I really felt for Instagram.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
had to come to a place where they don't pay my bills. Everybody who's doing that, nobody's coming to help me in the middle of the night with these babies. I
Yeah.
have to do what works for me.
Yeah. You
Or I'm
gotta
gonna
do
kill
what works for
myself.
you. You gotta do what works for you. And that is, I think, what is the kind of the underlying intention of social media is to push the boundaries. So push it so that you don't know where you end and they begin.
Mm,
Everything is about what you see on social media. And it's so fake. And then people are depressed. Why? Because there's a tension between who I am and who I want to be, the real state and my ideal state. So then I'm depressed and I'm having mental health issues because I'm not who I think I should be based on what social media tells me I should be.
mhm.
But again, this is where we need a generation. We need, women, I'm going to say women specifically, who are very clear on, here are my parameters. You will not do this. You will not say this. You won't trigger me in that way. If my feed on social media starts to look a certain way, I'm getting off. I'm getting off because
Getting
it's
off.
rattling me the wrong way. And so the boundary that I have, the ability that I have to say, I'm getting off, this is my phone. People don't control it but me. I could just get off, right? Getting off, that's a way that we exercise and start to practice our boundaries.
Wow. Well, I thank you all for listening. I thank you, Lucretia, for getting on
You
and
are welcome.
spending this time with me. Again, below is her information so that you can reach out to her if you have any questions, or if you have any questions for me that I can relate to her. I'm open and willing to do that as well. Again, I thank you so much for listening. Please tune in next week because we're going to do part 2, having healthy boundaries with people in our lives. So, Lucretia, you ready for that?
Yes, I am. I want to tell you, I love your God is dope shirt.
Oh, and I love your unapologetically dope shirt. Show it off.
Mama, I love my shirt.
So I just thank you so much. I had so much fun. I hope that this helps you and blesses you. And again, tune in next week for part 2.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you, Ivory.
All right. See ya.
Bye.